Hello friends, and welcome to the Cold War Prepper. This is going to be a two-part series. I'm going to do one part explaining some basic functions, and then the second part we'll go through the actual specifications of the different systems that I have and talk about those. So let's talk about water purification. There's basically three ways you can do it. You can either filter it through something, which is the majority of what we're going to be talking about in part two, water purification and filtration systems. Second one is you can add chemicals to it to purify it, and that's what we did in the Army. We had water purification tablets we would add to our canteen if we got water out of a rice paddy or a stream or a lake or anything like that. And the third method is called distillation, and that can either be through evaporation, that is putting it in something so that the sun hits down on it, the water evaporates, and then it goes through a condenser and you collect that condensed water. Or distillation, same thing as making whiskey. You're going to have a fire, you're going to boil water in a pot, the water goes up, then it condenses down a coil as it goes down into its distribution point, where you can collect clean, fresh, distilled water. The problem with distillation is that it removes a lot of the chemicals, a lot of the minerals and things that are typically found in water. So you're just going to get pure water, you're not going to get any mineral benefits or anything like that. And so that's also requires that you build a fire, unless you're going to use the sun hydration system and just lay it in some sort of a pan or something that has maybe a glass lid so that it's focusing the sun's rays down on it and evaporating the water through that same kind of a system. You're going to have all kinds of contaminants at the bottom of whatever it is your collection pan or your distiller is at the end that you're going to have to get rid of before you add your next bunch, or else you lose a lot of the capacity to heat the bottom of the vessel you're using because it's going to have salt, minerals, or whatever. I don't know of any filtration system or any commercially available water filtration, water purification system that will take care of salt water, salinated water. So if you need to take care of salinated water, you live on the coast or on the Gulf or anything like that, then you're going to have to use either the evaporation method or you're going to have to use the distillation method. That's the only way I'm aware of currently that you can change salt water into fresh water. Now there's also two different ways that you can filter things. You're either going to draw it through, that is by sucking on it. So you have one end of your filtration system at the source, the water source, and you're going to draw that water through by sucking on it. Or the second method is it's going to be a drop method or a push method. So there's either a pull or a push. So when you suck, you're pulling the water through. A push method, basically what you're doing is you're depending upon gravity most of the time. And gravity is going to force the water through the filter system and then into some sort of a collection pot. And so those are kind of the ways we go. I only have a couple what they call straw systems. And as a matter of fact, this is so old, I don't even know who makes it. I couldn't find anything about it on the internet. I have some Life straws, and I have these water straws. And they go in our bug out bags. I don't use them here in the house. A couple reasons that I don't like a pull-through system or a sucking system. Number one, you're going to put this in your mouth, and then you're going to put the other portion of it down into the source of the water you want to purify. So you're going to have to get your face pretty close to contaminated water, whether that be a lake, stream, or anything else, in order to get it drawn through, unless you're going to use some sort of a collection thing, and then you put this down inside the collection thing and draw it from there. So that's one disadvantage, is you have to get your face fairly close to the contaminated source in order to use it. The second thing that I don't like about these is if you're trying to get enough water to hydrate a freeze-dried food or a dehydrated food, or you're trying to get the water to boil, so let's say make a cup of coffee, you're sucking on it. So that water is going into your mouth first, and the only place you can do that is you're either going to have to spit it out in order to get it into a pot to make coffee or something like that. So you're going to have expectorated water that you're going to be mixing with your food or anything else if you're using only a Life straw or a water straw. So that's the disadvantage of using that. That's why we only have it in our bug out bags. We don't have it anywhere in the house for us to use in case we need something there. The other method is basically a push method. And so typically, and I'm going to use the Big Berkey as an example, you've got two different chambers. So in the upper chamber, you have your filter systems. With the Berkey, you can go for anywhere from 1 to 4 filters. And you've got the water in the upper chamber. It goes through the filters and then down into the bottom chamber. So you're using two things. You're using gravity, which is going to determine how fast that goes down through. So the more water you have up top, the heavier it is, and the more it's going to push down through the filter, and the faster you're going to filter. The second one is how many filters you're using. So we only use 2 at a time here. You can put in 4. I did order 2 extra ones, but that's only because I wanted to have extra filters. But the 2 filters and the 2.25 gallon system pushes down on that, and so that takes just under an hour to get 2.5 gallons, 2.25 gallons of water purified through the Big Berkey. But the advantage is once it gets into that lower tank, you have a spigot, so you can put that into something else and move it to another storage unit. So now you have the water available, so you can use it for coffee, for rehydrating freeze-dried or dehydrated foods. So that's what I recommend if you're going to be in a more stable environment, is to use some sort of a stable water purification system if you're in a home environment. But of course, if you're bugging out, then, unless you're going to get up into the Sawyers, and we'll talk about a couple of those in part 2, probably you're going to want to have a life straw or a water straw for your bug out bags. So that's what we have as far as the basic principles behind water filtration, water purification, part 1. And then we'll continue this with some of my select systems I've accumulated since 1978. And I will tell you, my number one thing that I want to accomplish with water filtration is I don't want cryptosporidium in the water supply. We were in 1970, I think it was 1978. No, it was 1998. 1998. Our municipal utility district, lightning struck our sewage pump, and the pump took the raw sewage, collected raw sewage into a tank, and then pumped it up a little bit of an elevation, and it gravity fed down into the city of Austin's water sewage treatment plant. Lightning hit that pump, and so all the sewage from our neighborhood was collecting in that tank, and it overfilled and went into Brushy Creek. But our wellhead for our drinking water was about 100 yards or so upstream from where the sewage spill was, so they said that we were safe. But somehow or other, raw sewage did get into our drinking water supply. My daughter was one of the first victims of that, and 2 agents from the CDC came by the house about 10 o'clock at night, looked just like Scully and Mulder, if you know who that is. And my daughter was the first confirmed case of cryptosporidiosis. So we don't want any cryptosporidium in our drinking water, so that's one of the number one things I look at when I'm looking at the qualities of a water filtration system. About 3-4 years after that, my wife said, our water smells like gasoline. And sure enough, about a week after that, they closed down our water and gave us a boil water notice. Well, actually, we couldn't even boil it because, yes, an underground gasoline tank had rusted through and we were getting gasoline in our drinking water supply. So my second requirement is that whichever filtration system I have removes volatile organic compounds or petroleum products, whichever you prefer to call them. But they're usually going to be found on the label with VOC. So that's volatile organic compounds or fuels. So those are the 2 things I really want to remove because I've seen the effects of both of those. But anyhow, part 2, we'll talk about the water filtration systems themselves. And this is Lee, the Cold War prepper. And I'm asking you to please remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Togetherness is the key. Take care. Bye-bye.